The Silent Neighbours. Rachel had always lived a quiet life in the small town of Green Hollow. Her house, a modest two-storey with peeling paint, stood on the edge of town. She liked it that way, far from the noise and chaos of city life. It was her sanctuary. The only thing she had to worry about was the occasional power outage or the raccoons that rummaged through her trash cans. But lately, something felt off. It started with the neighbours. The Williams family had moved in next door just a few months ago, and at first Rachel was glad to have new people around. They were a young couple, quiet but friendly when they passed her on the sidewalk. They had a young daughter, Lily, who seemed to enjoy playing in the front yard. Everything was normal. Then the silence started. At first it was subtle. The sound of the family's voices, which had once drifted over the fence during their evening dinners, gradually became less frequent. The laughter of Lily, which Rachel had often heard as she worked in her garden, disappeared entirely. Days would go by without any sound coming from the house. Rachel tried not to think too much of it. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe they had gone on a trip. But as the days turned to weeks, the unease began to grow. One evening, when Rachel returned home from work, she noticed something strange. The front door to the Williams house was wide open. The porch light flickered in the dimming light of dusk, but there was no movement inside, no sign of life. Curious and a little concerned, Rachel crossed the lawn and walked to their front door. She knocked a few times, then paused, listening for any sounds from inside. Nothing. Rachel. "Hello? Is everything okay in there?" The silence hung thick in the air. The door creaked open slightly as if pushed by a breeze. Rachel hesitated, but then stepped inside. The living room was eerily still, the furniture undisturbed, and dust motes floating in the beams of fading sunlight. It looked as if the family had just vanished. Rachel's heart began to race. She stepped deeper into the house, calling out, "Rachel! Hello? Mr. and Mrs. Williams?" Her footfalls echoed in the silence, and then from somewhere deep within the house she heard it, a soft, scratching sound like fingernails scraping against wood. Rachel froze. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. She turned slowly toward the source of the noise, moving toward the stairs that led to the second floor. The scratching grew louder. She ascended the stairs carefully, each step creaking under her weight. At the top, the hallway stretched before her, dark and quiet. As she moved toward the last door on the left, the Williams' bedroom, the scratching became frantic, almost desperate. Rachel's hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. She turned it slowly, the door creaking open to reveal a dark room. Her breath caught in her throat. Lily Williams was sitting in the middle of the floor, her back to Rachel. She was scratching at the floor with her hands over and over, her nails torn and bleeding. She didn't look up. She didn't speak. Rachel took a step forward, her voice barely a whisper. "Rachel? Lily? Where are your parents? What happened?" Lily's head jerked back abruptly, and Rachel gasped as the child's face twisted into a grotesque mask of fear and hunger. Her eyes were wide, wild, and her lips pulled back into a snarl, exposing yellowed teeth. "Lily, they're still here!" Lily hissed, her voice strange, hollow. Before Rachel could react, the door slammed shut behind her, plunging the room into darkness. The last thing Rachel heard was the frantic sound of scratching echoing from the walls. The following day, when the police arrived, there was no sign of Rachel. No sign of the Williams family either. The house was empty, completely abandoned, as if no one had ever lived there. The neighbours said they hadn't seen Rachel in days, and no one dared mention the strange sounds that sometimes came from the old house late at night, the kind of scratching you could hear if you stood too close to the walls. Fade out.